Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, I will show you how to use the Sumo Motion Control plugin, which allows you to animate scene components over time using configurable motion settings for location, rotation, and scale with replicated support for multiplayer objects. We will go through the setup, motion requests, and practical examples such as opening and closing doors and drawers, but also can be used for any kind of replicated movement animation. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so if you want to create motion, only thing you need is to add the motion control component to your actor that you want to animate. Let's actually open the motion control component. And over here, we got the list of the functions provided. So basically the main function is the play motion function with the motion request. This function is used for playing the motion with specific parameters. And also for better control over the motion, we provided additional functions like pause motion, resume, reverse, or stop motion completely with optional snapping to end of the motion or not. Also over here, we got some helper functions. So first one is capture initial transform. So basically in this system, you can set the start mode to use the initial transform. And with this, you can recapture if you need. And then we got a clear target component override and some getters over here. And also we have two bindable events, which is on motion started and on motion finished. So based off these events, you can do your custom logic. Okay, as I said, I would like to show you the example of how to open and close the door and how to open and close the drawer for this purpose with this plugin. So let's hop right onto it. Okay, so I'm gonna create the actor. Let's call it b_door. And here I'm gonna add the static mesh, add the door mesh inside. Also, let's add the door frame mesh like this. Position it roughly where it needs to be. Okay, and now we need to add the motion control component. In the motion control component over here, you get the target component reference. You can set here the component name which you want to animate when this actor is constructed. So for me, the name is static mesh. So I'm gonna just copy it and paste it here. However, if you don't want to use this or you want to change the component you want to animate, you can go into the event graph and from the component call the set target component. And I don't know, maybe if you want to animate the frame for some reason, which is called static mesh 1, you can just put it in like this and the system will consider the static mesh 1 for the animation. By the way, this plugin works extremely great with our interaction framework plugin, but since I don't have the interaction framework in this project, I'm just gonna do it on event begin play. I'm gonna use set timer by event here. Let's put in here 3 seconds. Let's create custom event interact door. Okay, so let's drag the motion control component in and let's type play motion and let's make a request. Okay, and here we got lots of parameters. So like first 4 are the modes that we want to use. So first one is transform space. So whether you want to animate in the relative or world space, I think that's pretty clear. Then we got the start mode. In here we got 3 options: use current transform, use stored initial transform, and use manual start transform. Okay, so what are the difference between these 3? Like the use current transform is when system will assign the target component which you want to animate, then he's gonna capture its transform. So for example, if I do this, set target component, or at the very beginning where the actor is constructed, it's gonna take the static mesh. So now the system will capture the initial transform of the static mesh over here. So that means that's its current transform, and it's gonna never change until you're gonna call capture initial transform, which if we read the tooltip, captures the current transform as the initial transform baseline. So basically we're gonna override the initial transform that was saved when the component was set to be the target component for the animation. Then we got the option for use stored initial transform. This is the very initial transform which can be changed. And then the last but not least, we got the use manual start transform. If you use this one, if you look at the bottom here, we got the manual start transform and the end transform. So in here we can manually specify what's the start transform for the animation, and it's gonna always use this value as the start if you use this start mode. Okay, let's put it back to the use current transform. Then we got the target mode. So for the target we can have absolute transform or transform offset. What does it mean? Absolute transform, if you use absolute transform, let's put our door into the world and let's say we want to move the door by 100 in the X direction. So if I go back over here and I got my start mode as use current transform, so I don't have to put anything in the manual start transform over here. I only need to set up the end transform. So I'm gonna do make transform over here, and let's do 100 over here. Let's do simulate. Okay, and let's simulate. Now the door goes 100 in the x direction. Okay, that's great. However, since we are using the absolute transform means that by the end of this animation, the static mesh will be at 100, 0, 0 in relative space. So if I go back to the viewport and I'm gonna click my door, let's move it by 100 in the y direction. So, and if I play it now, since it's absolute transform, it's gonna also animate the y and it goes back to 0. So if I double click on the door, you can see that the relative transform is 100, 0, and 0. However, if you want to only apply like a delta, so if you don't want to track like the absolute transform, what is your current, but if you want to only offset the door by some value, you can just use transform offset. And if I do 100 here, it's gonna only move the door by 100. And since the y and z is 0, it's gonna do nothing with them. So I got the door at the same state. So relative location in y is 100. And now the door will only go in the x direction while not changing the y direction, because we have set the animation to be as a type of transform offset. Okay, and last but not least, the interrupt policy. So this is used when the motion is currently playing and you gonna play another motion on top of that. This determines what should happen with the next motion. In here you can define if we should ignore new motions since one is already playing, if we should restart from current or from initial, or we should reverse. Okay, then we have the booleans for affecting the location, rotation, and scale. So for example, the door, we only want to affect the rotation, so I can uncheck the location over here and I can just keep the affect rotation to true. If you want your movement to be 100% accurate, you can just stick this on. However, if not, and you're okay with the tolerance, you can just turn it off, and you can just expect the motion to be plus minus these tolerance values that you can adjust here. Okay, then we got the duration. So let's use 1 second over here. This duration is in seconds. Then we got the curve, which acts as the alpha, and manual and end transforms. I was talking about it before. Okay, so let's create actual doors. So what I can do here is to, since we want to open and close, I need to track the state of the door. So let's create a new variable called b is open, and I'm gonna always switch its value when the motion plays. And in here, we can just select, put it to the end transform. Let's make transform. If the doors are open, we want to close them. So we're gonna do, actually, let's put this back. Okay, so if I want to open them, it's gonna be minus 90, and close them, it's going to be 90. Okay, so if I want to open them, it's minus 90. If I want to close them, it's 90, like this. We are affecting only the rotation. We are moving in relative space with the current transform, and we are only applying the offset. Okay, now the door opens and closes, like very easily and very fastly. We got the door movement done. All of these animations and movement are replicated. Okay, now let's try to create a shuffle. So I'm going to duplicate the door, call it b shuffle. And since I don't have any shuffle mesh in this project, I'm just going to use the cube. So let's delete the frame over here. Let's use the cube. Okay, so there is our shuffle, and let's go in here. So everything basically stays the same since we want to open and close it. We again want to use the transform offset. The only thing that changes is that we don't want to affect the rotation. We want to affect the location. So we want to open it always in the z direction, let's say by 40. So we can just type here in the x 40, and when it's open and we want to close it, we're gonna type the opposite. And over here, we need to say that, okay, I want to affect the location and actually only location. Also, then we can look at the curve. But first of all, let's try to see the result. So if I put the shuffle in and I play, now the shuffle is open and yeah, everything is working. And now let's look at the curves. So we already have some pre-made ones. So over here, for example, we have C motion alpha cubic, but to actually see the result, let's use the motion alpha test. If I show you, the curve looks like this. So basically all of these curves, like it determines the alpha of the animation. So it's value from 0 to 1, and you just define the process. Okay, so now the motion should be very weird. Yeah, so it goes slow and then it pops. The same, the opposite way. And let's maybe use the alpha cubic. And now you can see we got like ease in and ease out motion. This system can be extremely handy if it comes to some interaction animations or like any sort of animations. Also, it's multiplayer replicated, which is like a huge addition. And guys, it's gonna be it for today's tutorial. Thank you everyone for watching. Please, if you have a minute or two, I would really appreciate if you would leave a review. I would be extremely happy. Currently, you can find this plugin on the FAB marketplace. And if you want support, have questions, or you want to join our amazing community, feel free to join our Discord server. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you in the next tutorial.